Jesus Trilogy, Book 1, The Four Messiahs, Chapter 20. I gotta push. The word startled him back to reality. Everybody in the room, and even Mary and Zach, woke up. Elizabeth was nice, but loud. Dr. Luke examined her. There was only a little anterior lip left of the cervix. He would have liked her to go on to complete dilatation, but he figured that he better take this window of opportunity and let her push. She had to be tired. He was, and he hadn't done anything. And push she did. Again, he noticed more green fluid on his examining finger, but thankfully no more blood. The next hour seemed like one long scream, but suddenly it was over. "It's a boy!" They all heard Dr. Luke shout the news at the top of his lungs. "Congratulations, Elizabeth and Zacharias," he said, his voice softening. "It's a boy!" Elizabeth shrieked. How did she know, he thought. He still couldn't figure it out. There was some green-stained fluid in the little guy's mouth, but the nurse quickly wiped it away. After sputtering a bit, the baby boy gave out the loudest cry Dr. Luke had ever heard from a newborn. The child continued to cry unabated for the next hour. They were happy that he was acting so healthy, but wished he would cool it a little. Right after the placenta was delivered, Elizabeth repeated, "It's a boy," and fainted. The nurse quickly got her smelling salts and took the patient's pulse. "Pulse is strong, doctor," Pamela said. "Thank you, nurse. Keep monitoring it, please." Elizabeth was bleeding fairly briskly, for she had torn quite severely, but Luke guessed that pressure, massage, and the clotting ointment would control it. Her pulse was strong. A sense of relief came over him, such as he had never experienced, nor would he ever experience again. "Shall I show him the baby, doctor?" Nurse Pamela asked. "No, let me do the honor. Just keep massaging her uterus and watch for any change in pulse or increase in bleeding." He took the still crying boy and walked out into the other room where Zach and Mary were sitting. The infant was wrapped in a blanket. Mary and Zach came up and peered in the blanket at the quite hirsute baby boy. "He sure has got hair. What's his name?" "Zach Jr.?" Luke asked. "His name is John," old Zach said very loudly. Mary's eyes widened. "Nice name." Then Dr. Luke realized that Zacharias had just spoken for the first time in 9 months. And now Dr. Luke was the one who almost fainted. Mary steadied him and helped him, still carrying baby John to a chair, and yes, Johnny was still crying. Flashing through Dr. Luke's mind was the fact that neither he nor any of his consultants had ever found a reason for Zacharias' stroke. "His name is John," Elizabeth repeated from the other room. The bewildered and exhausted doctor was holding the screaming baby, and Mary was too overwhelmed to help. She sat. Waves of nausea now hit her. Zacharias was on his knees, praying aloud in the corner of the room, and every now and then there would be a cry of agony from the bedroom. Finally, Pamela came out and surveyed the little scene. She said, "Doctor, you better bring the baby back into his mother before he catches his death of cold." "Right." Mary stayed on with Elizabeth for another month. John was a handful. He ate like mad, cried all the time, and grew more hair by the day. The ordeal of pregnancy, labor, and delivery had taken a lot out of Elizabeth. It was a long while before she was able to recover. Her leg edema decreased, but never completely subsided. The large venous varicosities she had developed forever reminded her of that terrible yet wonderful night of August 1st. Zacharias preached the sermon that first Sabbath after Elizabeth's delivery. The congregation was stunned. The Judah Times front page headline read, "Priest, his new father, regains voice." In his sermon, Zacharias related his experience of not believing God's prediction about having a child at such an advanced age. He told of how God had said Zacharias' son would do an important work, but he didn't go on into detail, nor did he divulge Mary's secret. Some of the congregation speculated that little John might be the long-awaited Messiah, but Zach just let the rumors swirl and eventually die down. To his dying day, Zach always feared that God would again take away his voice, but God kept his promise and never did.